The DOTR and the MMDA have touted the EDSA Busway as one of the keys to solving the problem of traffic congestion in Metro Manila's busiest thoroughfare, and as a major component of a safe and efficient network of mass transport systems to serve commuters as the Metro eases out of strict community quarantine measures into the new normal. Now, under what authorities call interim operations, the EDSA Busway's effect on traffic is the topic of this week's edition of Motoring Forum. In the days following the declaration of enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila, EDSA seemingly became a ghost highway. It was an eerie sight to some, a wonder sight to many tired of slogging through EDSA 24/7 in pre-COVID days. But that can't last long, although it was long enough for the air over Metro Manila to clear, and lo and behold, many can actually see the Sierra Madre Range behind the Metro's skylines. As ECQ turned to MECQ and MECQ to GCQ, more and more private vehicles began to return to EDSA, along with a few buses and shuttles and other vehicles allowed to transport frontliners and the cargo haulers of essential goods and commodities. As more and more businesses were allowed to reopen, although at a reduced capacity, authorities began to phase in more transport modes to service workers returning to work while encouraging the use of two-wheeled vehicles, motorized and the pedaled varieties. Perhaps an empty EDSA was perceived by transport authorities as a blank slate on which to draw a new vision for a thoroughfare long beset by gridlock caused by unruly and undisciplined bus and cargo truck drivers and equally unmanageable private motorists. The DOTR and the MMDA began talking about transforming EDSA into a model for safe and efficient thoroughfares during the transition to the new normal and beyond. A major component of this transformation is the EDSA Busway. As envisioned by the DOTR and the MMDA, the EDSA Busway will shift the bus lanes from the two outermost lanes to a single innermost lane to be used exclusively by buses. At least 12 or more bus loading and unloading zones, covered, lighted, and railed for safety, will also be set on center islands. The idea is for buses to run exclusively inside their designated lane with no overtaking allowed. And buses would only load and unload passengers at stops in the middle of EDSA. Their times at the stops limited, no waiting for passengers. The EDSA Busway would basically be a carousel for buses running in a loop from EDSA Monumento to Baclaran, then to the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, then back to EDSA Monumento. It estimated that the busway would cut bus travel time from EDSA Monumento to PITX to just 45 minutes to an hour instead of the usual 3+ hours. The MMDA, with the help of the DPWH, began fast-tracking establishment of the busway lane using concrete and orange plastic barriers already on hand, and ordering 36,000 more to completely separate the busway from other vehicles. Even before the busway is completed, and with intensifying public pressure to provide more transport for commuters on EDSA, the DOTR went on to implement what it called the EDSA Busway Interim Operations. Curbside loading and unloading at designated stops on EDSA was still allowed, while buses were given exclusive use of bus lanes already marked out by barriers. With a lane for bikes also established on the outermost lane, private motorists were mostly restricted to 2 middle lanes of certain segments of EDSA, resulting in congestion enough for some motorists to post their plight on social media. At certain hours of the day and in certain segments, vehicle volume grew denser inside the lanes allowed to private motorists. Traffic slowed down to a crawl, but it kept moving. Except for a number of pasaway motorists of the two-wheeled and four-wheeled variety, Ferraris and government officials on private cars included, the busway lanes remained free for buses to speed on. Where curbside loading and unloading was allowed, where EDSA narrowed at junctions, at approaches to overpasses and underpasses and interchanges, traffic slowed, sometimes to a crawl, but not to the point of a full gridlock. Despite some angry posts or commentary on social media, traffic on EDSA did not really return to pre-COVID days or nights. But not everyone are out with their cars. Many are still working from home, and some are out of jobs. Meanwhile, the ordered concrete barriers are arriving, delivered straight to EDSA where they are to be installed and positioned. Work that some expect could add to congestion. The DOTR and the MMDA remain vocal about their commitment to their vision of a transformed EDSA with a busway, stops on center island and bays, safe pedestrian crossings to the loading and unloading zones, and yes, bike lanes. A transformed EDSA, well integrated to a mass transport network for the metro, with traffic flowing. The jury is still out on whether the EDSA Busway will live up to the DOTR and the MMDA's expectations as a reliever of traffic congestion or an efficient provider of transport for the masses. We'll have to wait for when the EDSA Busway facilities are complete and in full operation. That's our Motoring Forum this week, courtesy of Suzuki Philippines.